Welcome to Inner Authority. This podcast is for people who know that they are capable of more, not in a striving way, but in a quiet, internal knowing. It's for the people who've done a lot right, who are intelligent, who are self-aware, who are successful by most measures, but they still feel that tension inside, like something has gone slightly off track. Not because you're broken, and not because you need fixing, but because at some point you learn to lead yourself from effort instead of trust. Inner authority is about coming back from that. It's about restoring your relationship with your own knowing, your decisions, your direction, not by pushing harder, but by listening more honestly. My name is Kelly Brummer. I'm the founder of Start and Succeed and Inner Authority podcast. Each episode of this podcast is an invitation for you to slow down, to notice what's actually true for you, and to lead yourself from that place again. So if you're done outsourcing your authority and you're ready to come back into alignment with yourself, then you're in the right place. In today's episode, I want to talk to you about overthinking, because we can often do that, can't we? And how overthinking is actually a leadership issue. Now, overthinking is usually framed as a thinking problem. People assume it means that you're anxious, indecisive, lacking confidence. But overthinking doesn't come from a lack of intelligence. It comes from a lack of inner authority, and inner knowing, and inner trust and self-belief. So when you don't trust yourself to decide, what happens is your mind keeps searching for certainty. So you replay conversations, you might analyze options, you look for the right answer, maybe even seeking external validation. And that's not because you don't know what it is that you actually want, but because you don't feel authorized yourself to choose it, to make the decision. And this is why overthinking is just so exhausting. It's essentially a leadership energy that's trapped in your mind. When inner authority is intact, when we have that self-belief, that self-trust, that inner knowing, decisions don't require that endless analysis. The decisions still may be uncomfortable and challenging. They may still carry a risk, but they are clean decisions. You have clarity on what it is that you are deciding upon. Overthinking, well, that shows up when you override your internal signal. And instead of making your own decisions, because you don't trust yourself, you look outside of yourself for reassurance. So you might ask other people for opinions. You might gather more information and data. You might delay an action until it feels safe for you to decide, I'm going to do it. But safety never comes from thinking longer. It comes from trusting yourself enough to make a move, to take the action. Now, most high achieving people learned early on that being thoughtful, being careful, and prepared was rewarded. And as a result, they learned to stay in their own head. They learned to outthink uncertainty instead of leading through it. Now that strategy, it might work for a while, but eventually it actually becomes a limitation because leadership, requires a choice, a decision. Not perfect information, not more data, not universal agreement to something, but a choice, a decision. So when you avoid choosing and making decisions, your mind fills the gap with analysis. Now that analysis can lead to overthinking, and overthinking isn't the problem. Avoiding the leadership is. So this doesn't mean that you stop thinking if you're a great leader. It actually means that you stop using thinking as a way to avoid any kind of responsibility and any decision-making opportunities. Inner authority allows you to say, this is what feels true for me right now. even if it's imperfect, even if it's inconvenient. That statement in your mind keeps it quiet. Not because everything is resolved, but because leadership has been restored. You have made the decision based on what feels true for you right now. And clarity doesn't come from certainty. It comes from self-trust. So when you trust yourself, you actually be able to use thinking as a tool again, not a trap. So rather than getting overwhelmed and overthinking, you can use thinking in your thought process as a tool to help you make decisions. But if you're in a cycle of overwhelm, of overthinking, of being unsure, of seeking validation from external sources, you're never going to make decisions that sit right wholly with you. Before you move on with your day, just notice what shifted whilst you were listening to this episode. Not what you learned, but what settled. Inner authority doesn't announce itself loudly. It feels like a quiet agreement inside of you, inside of your body and inside of your mind. If this episode met you there, stay with the podcast and go and subscribe so that you don't have to go looking for this again. It will be here when you're ready to listen. No pressure, no urgency. Just a return to yourself, one conversation at a time.